What is up, Cough Country? Welcome back, my favorite people. It's Steve with the news, and I'm here for Cough Country News. I got so much for you guys. Pumped you're here, and let's dive right in. I'm going to share it with you right now. Let's see what we got. We're starting with a little bit of pop culture. Nicki Minaj got into a little trouble in Europe, and this is Cough Country News, so I'll bet you can guess why. But don't worry, I'm going to tell you anyway. After that, there's a new farm bill on the menu, and congressional leaders, they're all zeroing in on these hemp-derived alternatives, especially THCA. I'll tell you what they're talking about. And then after that, Willie Nelson, he might be in your ears, he might be in your heart, but soon he's going to be in your kitchen. He's coming out with a cookbook, and we're going to dive in. I'll tell you more about when that's coming out. After that, marijuana has just surpassed alcohol in daily use. A study has just said that. We'll kind of break down the details, digest that a little bit, let you know what that's going to mean for you. And then the DEA is not signing off on the rescheduling, the whole rescheduling thing, and we're going to dive into that. I'm going to tell you more about why that's happening and the drama that's going on behind the scenes. And finally, we're coming back around to the strains of yesterday, where we go to South Africa, checking out Durban Poison. I'm very pumped about that. It's a great strain, and I'm going to tell you more about it all right now on Cough Country News. It's coming at you right now. Don't go anywhere.
No sticks, no seeds, just news.
From the Cough Country News Desk, it's Steve with your cannabis news.
Hey guys, so Nicki Minaj fans in Manchester, England have gotten their world rocked this past week when the Trinidadian queen of rap pulled a no-show for her Pink Friday 2 tour. She was supposed to play at the Co-op Live Arena in Manchester, but she got held up in the Netherlands because they said she was trying to export drugs. So they found a bunch of pre-rolls in her bag, right? And the security guard, of course, said they were his, but you know. So they held her up for 6 hours before they allowed her to leave, and unfortunately, that was a little too long, and Nicki missed her show. They slapped her with a $400 fine, and she had to reschedule the event. Now, Amsterdam and the Netherlands both have the reputation for being really pretty lax on marijuana, even though it is still actually very much illegal in the country. So flying marijuana out of the country is still considered trafficking, both in the Netherlands and in the EU. Now, but if you ask Minaj, it's a little bit more than an unfortunate incident, she might say. She's saying it's a conspiracy coming together to get her to miss her concert and disappoint her fans. She said, I quote, "Told you, they're trying to make me late so they can write negative stories. Jealousy is a disease. You know the rest," basically, quote unquote, kind of more or less. But yeah, Nicki, that's probably exactly what happened there. So elsewhere, guys, in right now, the legal definition, the current present definition for hemp is any cannabis with less than 0.3% Delta-9 THC in it. Now, if it meets that requirement, it's considered completely legal and doesn't need all the oversight that regular marijuana has. But the legal world is going nuts over the latest craze. That's hemp-derived, that's a big quote-unquote, Delta-9 THCA. Now, THCA is exactly like its cousin Delta-9 THC, except it has a little acid molecule on the end of it. That's the A, right? Now it's non-psychoactive when it has that acid molecule on it, but as soon as you apply heat, like through a lighter or a vape, that acid molecule goes away, and all of a sudden it becomes Delta-9 THC with all the psychoactive properties we know and love about it. And guys, we've been doing this all along, right? That's why you light a joint, you bake a brownie. And according to the letter of the law, 0.3% THC is not THCA. So THC technically gets to fly way under the radar and pretty much serves as legal weed where marijuana is illegal. So it's popping up, it's coming out alongside of, especially alongside of other hemp-derived alternatives like Delta-8, HHC, which are also not regulated and not taxed. The people in charge are seeing all this and getting super pissed about all the competition here, and they're screaming for anyone, in fact, to close this darn loophole. Now, the Farm Bill, the recent Farm Bill, was supposed to be away and done with last year when the government was supposed to come out with a revised draft. But they panicked, they didn't have anything, so they kicked the can down the road, and now they have until September. So that's coming up real soon to define a new legal definition of hemp. And you better believe they've got those cannabinoids in their crosshairs. Ooh, do they? But the DEA recently wrote a letter to Congress saying that we advise you in measuring of THC to use post-decarboxylation measures. Essentially, that's going to include all that unburnt THCA in the plant and take that off the table to be considered a legal cannabinoid. They're also saying that they do not consider anything not naturally extracted from cannabis, not extracted from hemp, to be hemp-derived, and that is all still illegal. So basically, they're dialing on all those hemp-derived THC alternatives, anything from Delta-8, THCO, THCP, THCA, all of them. They're taking all of them off the table. And believe it or not, a lot of legal hemp companies are on board. A lot of ones selling legal THC are supporting this movement. They're hoping to criminalize all these cannabinoids and eliminate all their competition. Basically, anybody out there selling THC, they're out there. They're not paying taxes. They're not enduring any regulation. It's way cheaper than this other products. So they're out there. They want to get the government to stop this free lunch and kind of even the playing field across the board. But hemp people are terrified. Currently, hemp producers are getting rid of about 25% of their product because it accidentally has too much THC in there. If they kind of make those measures stricter, they're going to have to throw out a lot more of their hemp and cut way into their profits, making their life a whole lot harder. Guys, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. We've got a little commercial coming up, but we got more news after that. You know we do. This is how we do it. Stick around.
This is a flower. Some people might try to tell you that it's a Schedule I controlled substance. They might scream drugs, drugs, drugs over and over and over again. They might put drugs in all caps. You might even start to believe that this is a drug, but it's not. This is medicine.
Welcome back, guys. Look how lickety-split that was, and we're back with the news already. It's amazing. So we got more news for you, and we're going over to a country music legend. Willie Nelson and his wife, Annie, want to take your dinner party to the next level. So the always on my mind singer and a cannabis connoisseur is putting out a cookbook that is going to feature cannabis recipes alongside Willie Nelson's famed ability for storytelling and his herbal remedies, along with his wife Annie's passion for home-cooked meals. They're going to go back and share some of their favorite dishes they've had while they've been on the road and in their Texas home. Those recipes are going to feature all sorts of cannabis dishes and cannabis ingredients, all the while Willie regales us with food-themed stories from his long and storied life. It sounds very exciting. But the cookbook is not going to come out till November, but that's okay, folks, because Amazon, Target, and Barnes & Noble are all doing pre-orders to make sure that you get it as soon as it comes out. Isn't that kind of them? They're really thinking of the customer there. That's what I think. So you get your hands on that cookbook, you're going to be able to cook up some infused buffalo wings, chocolate cake, even some fried chicken. And I didn't even know you could do that. So that's going to be, I'm pretty pumped about that one. Now, the 90-year-old singer-songwriter has been a longtime advocate for cannabis, even though he lives in Texas, where cannabis is still technically pretty darn illegal. He even sits on the advisory board for NORML, which is a pretty high prestigious marijuana reform group, if you haven't heard of them. He said, quote, "Over a lifetime of study, I have learned that pot is more than pleasure. Its positive properties are absolutely limitless. It's a blessing, it's a blast, and it's darn good fuel." Now, Willie, who's rumored to be one of the only ones to ever smoke Snoop Dogg under the table, says marijuana actually saved his life. Back in his early days, he was a pretty heavy whiskey drinker and, by all accounts and rumors, a pretty unpleasant drunk. And all his friends who stuck with the bottle have passed on, and Willie Willie gives marijuana the conversion to the wacky tobacco is what actually turned his life around. So go, Willie, and I'm looking forward to that cookbook myself. Now, for the first time ever, guys, reports have put out that daily marijuana use has risen above daily alcohol use in the U.S., or so a recent study says. Now, the National Survey on Drug Use and Health took information from the past 4 decades and found out that by 2022, more people were reporting using marijuana on the daily as opposed to drinking alcohol every day. Now, scientists have called this growth in marijuana use, quote, striking, but they still say that more people drink than use cannabis, but that dynamic is definitely changing. So the median drinker, the one right in the middle, is drinking about 5 days a month, right? But the median cannabis user is using cannabis about 15 days out of the month. And all those changes are driven by changes in cannabis policy, as well as the wide variety of products that are now available to all sorts of people out there. Now, most people still smoke flower, right? But vapes and edibles, they're definitely on the rise. And all that's opening up marijuana to kind of wider swaths of the American public. Now, the study's author says that these changing policies are actually altering people's daily routines. Now, once upon a time, marijuana was a party drug, right? It was reserved for weekends and kind of get-togethers. Yeah, man, we're having a good time. But with the advent of low-dose edibles and vapes, that's really changing. Marijuana is kind of being used more like cigarettes as a daily practice and something to use throughout the day. And it's not just a young person's game anymore either. No. Older folks are getting in on the fun. In fact, people 35 and up made up most of that daily use. It wasn't just young people using daily. Now that sounds exciting. That may sound exciting to the marijuana community, but we're not really taking this as too much of a win, right? Now take a look at this graph. If you take a look at that, you're going to see that alcohol use is going down a little bit. It'll pop up right over here in just a second. So alcohol use there it is. Alcohol use is going down a little bit, but it's still kind of maintaining this trend that it's always been. It's kind of on track for what it's doing. But marijuana use isn't really taken away from that. It's really being added on top. Now, I'm a person who believes marijuana is definitely safer than alcohol in pretty much any way you can think. But daily marijuana use is not necessarily a healthy thing either. There is such a thing as over-medication. And there's all sorts of complications we're not taking into account here, like inhaling plant material every day and bombing our brains with serotonin every day. So I believe heartily that marijuana can do a lot of good out there, but there's a lot we don't know about its long-term chronic use, right? It's never really been studied. So the science still has a lot of questions to answer out there. And it's not like this study was made of gold either. No, the author himself said it. It's all based on self-reported information. So the willingness to report that information definitely has to be a factor when you think about it. So marijuana, the more it becomes normalized, the more legalized, the more open people are with your use. So of course that is definitely going to go up. But think back in the 90s, it was super illegal and people weren't really being open with how much they smoke. So the graph is going to be affected by that. And there's also a big stigma around alcohol use. And people are going to be definitely less inclined to tell you that they're drinking liquor on the daily. So all in all, it's your body, right? You're going to put into it what you think is right. It's your life. So and if you like to toke, you're going to have to decide how much is right for you. But it's definitely a safer option than alcohol, according to me and according to pretty much every study out there. But still, too much of a good thing might not necessarily be the best thing. All right, guys, one more message from our sponsor. We're going to be back with more news. Don't go anywhere. It's still Cough Country News. Yeah.
This is a flower. Some people might try to tell you that it's a Schedule I controlled substance. They might scream drugs, drugs, drugs over and over and over again. They might put drugs in all caps. You might even start to believe that this is a drug, but it's not. This is medicine.
Welcome back, guys. I'm so glad you stuck around for more news, and you're going to be glad you did too, because we are hitting it again. It's time for the strains of yesterday, where we explore the legends of cannabis cultivation and how they made marijuana what it is today. I mean, we've been all around the world checking out these legends, the backstories, the origins, where they came from, why they're unique, and why they're so near and dear to our hearts. Today, we are going south. I mean, way south, about, south as you can get, to South Africa, where we are asking whatever happened to Durban poison. Now, Durban is a sun-kissed coastal city on the east coast of South Africa. It's one of the larger city centers in the country and sits directly in the Emerald Triangle of South Africa. That's right. South Africa, just like Northern California, has an Emerald Triangle with almost 1 million cultivators who have been working with the plant for a very, very long time. Now, yeah, South Africa and Northern California both share similar climates, so it makes sense that one of the legends of cannabis came from this area. Now, originally, they say the Durban poison came from Pinetown. It's a region in the mountains about 10 miles west of Durban. It's got a higher elevation, a little bit further inland, not quite the coastal breezes you're going to get, but it was that's where the original landrace came from, where it developed naturally. But it didn't develop its notoriety that the West knows it for from strain hunters coming down to South Africa and poking through the backcountry. Oh no. Durban poison got famous once it got to Amsterdam in the late 70s. That's when people really got excited about it. Now, legend has it that Ed Rosenthal, the legendary grower and one of the co-authors of the Marijuana Grower's Guide, the legendary weed Bible that brought helped North American cannabis evolve from ditchweed into some of the finest bud in the world. Well, legend said that he stumbled upon the Durban poison seeds for the first time as he was exploring the coffee shops in Amsterdam. Now, rumor tries to put him in South Africa, reaching around looking for landrace strains, but he said that's absolute garbage. He found it in a coffee shop called Transvaal. So apparently that was the name of it, and that was named after a province in South Africa. And it was run by South Africans, and they were importing cannabis from their home country. And he admits that none of these seeds actually grew into a very powerful plant, but Durban poison did have other benefits to it. Now, sativas generally take a very long time to grow and mature, but Durban poison is super quick to grow and flower, and it's also really resistant to mold, which is really great. It wasn't too long before Sam the Skunk Man, a absolutely super famous breeder from way back in the day, who's responsible for things like Skunk Number 1, Original Haze, all sorts of other strains, I guarantee you know. Well, once he got his hands on those seeds, he worked his magic with it, and after a couple of rounds of breeding, he was able to stabilize the genetics and kind of beef up the strength a little bit. And once he moved his home base from the United States over to the Netherlands, over to Amsterdam in the 80s, he brought his fine-tuned Durban poison seeds with him, and he gave those seeds to the Holland Seed Bank, one of the first seed banks in the world that specialized in marijuana, and that's how Durban poison got its global fame that it has today. So Durban poison has an uplifting, energetic high, almost like a little shot of espresso. It's also high in limonene, and check out our video on limonene and its anti-anxiety effects. So if you want to know more about that. So it's not too jittery, not too racy of a high that a lot of high THC sativas can have. Durban poison is also super low in CBD, but it's also chock full of THCV. One of the minor cannabinoids that reduces the munchies, supports that energetic high, and check out our video on THCV if you want to learn more about that. So it's got that minty, citrusy scent, a little bit of a hint of licorice in there with a sweet, piney flavor. Now, Durban poison can be pretty hard to find these days in its original form, but modern growers are showing love left and right for this strain. They're using its genetics in all sorts of crossbreeds left and right. If you're looking for something like that, check out something like Girl Scout cookies or cherry pie. But if you had the opportunity to try it back in the day, or even if it's in its straight form, let me know in the comments. I want to hear what it was like, what it is like, what it's doing for you. Definitely let me know.
What?
In other news, Ann Milgram, the executive, the head of the DEA, just pulled all the executives aside. They told them to come to an isolated office on the 12th floor of the DEA headquarters, nicknamed the Bubble, where she sat everyone down for the marijuana meeting. And there was one little tiny caveat there. No one was allowed to take any notes. Now, that's where she also broke the news about Biden is about to reschedule marijuana, right? A move the DEA was blocking for a long time. Now, she also told everybody that the Justice Department was going to take control of the scheduling process away from the DEA, and that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, was the one who was going to sign off on the order, not Milgram herself, who would normally be the one to do that. She didn't give any reasons for it, and no explanations were given. The order signed by Merrick Garland said that the DEA has not made a determination as to its views of the appropriate schedule for marijuana. In fact, the last move made by the DEA was to write a letter to the Justice Department asking for more scientific information and for more time in order to assess if there was accepted medical use for marijuana. But they were totally overruled because they said the DEA's criteria was just impermissibly narrow. It didn't make any sense. So this definitely kind of does point the arrow toward political interference here. Biden definitely, he's coming into an election, right? He definitely needed this rescheduling to happen, and he was not about to wait for the DEA to throw a wrench in his plans. Now, the Controlled Substance Act, the stipulations in that act gave the regulation of Schedule 1, Schedule 2, all the scheduled substances to the Justice Department, and they gave the responsibility to classify those drugs to the DEA. So the DEA insiders are all crying foul. Even though they were way behind on the deadline to make their decision, they were still saying they did not have enough time to make their decision for all the to look at all the scientific information. And the fact that the Ann Milgram did not sign off on this order they're saying that it's a clear evidence that politicians stepped in and they're overriding the process here. But attorneys defending Garland's decision said he had to step in. The HHS, who made the recommendation in the first place to move marijuana on the schedule system, and the DEA both have very sharp, differing views on the topic. Now, the HHS says that there is much less of a risk to public health that marijuana poses as opposed to other Schedule 1, Schedule 2 substances, and that it shows evidence that it can be used to treat medical conditions like anorexia, pain, depression, a whole bunch of others. But the DEA has been pushing back on that pretty darn hard, and they've listed at least 10 officially documented instances where they did not believe what the HHS was saying. They looked at the scientific evidence and they said, I don't believe it. So now, even though the head of the DEA has not signed off on the rescheduling process, the DEA has been instructed to show significant deference to the HHS's medical findings. Basically, you can't argue with it anymore. Shut up. And so now they're in an open comment period before they make a final decision as to what the rules are going to be. And Milgram has been pretty darn tight-lipped about this whole process, too. Now, she only started in the DEA in 2021. And when she did that, she privately told some of her peers, hey, look, this marijuana legalization process, it's more of a distraction. Look, it's not a priority for me. I'm going to focus more on the fentanyl crisis. So she right away put the legalization question on the back burner. And when she was Attorney General of New Jersey, when the present governor, or when the governor at the time passed medical marijuana, she didn't have much comment about that either. All she basically says was the legislation was workable, and she left it at that. All right, guys, thank you so much for checking us out. This has been Cough Country News. We're always excited to bring you the news of the day, keep you up to date on what's going on in your world. Be sure you like, subscribe, follow, tell your friends. Bring them all here to Cough Country, where it's always no sticks, no seeds, just news. Yeah, I love the Cough Country News.
No sticks, no seeds, just news.